for women's
You did.
to drop somehow. There's nobody there on the answer. Should I call them back?
Was it on the house phone?
Yeah.
See if they leave a message. Wait a few minutes and see if there's a message.
There's nobody there.
What about Mary? You raise your hand and say aye,
Hi, I just got sound.
and we like that. That's good. Charles, are
Can
you
she
here?
hear, can she hear okay?
Hopefully.
Yes, I can now. Yes.
Is it echoey?
Am I echoing?
No.
Good, I don't want to. All right. So let's start off with the public comment. And if anyone would like to come forward, this would be the time to address the board. Director Murphy, do you see anyone waiting to get on and speak with us at this point?
No, let me just double check. I don't see anybody out here waiting to get on, so I think we're fine. There's nobody in the audience waiting either.
I don't see anybody out there, do you?
No.
No? Okay. So the second item here is a hearing for body art regulation. In parentheses, it's tattooing specifically. And this is a new business request. We're here tonight for a vote. Location is 48 Route 28 in West Yarmouth, Massachusetts. And this is the first time we've had someone in front of us for Body Art to start a business here in town. We certainly, the three of us here tonight, I don't think we've looked at the regulations. They're probably full of dust at this point. It's not something we've looked at. And we certainly need to. It's pretty relevant since we have someone who wants to come into town. which is exciting always to have new business in town. So one of the issues will be the request for the business, and the other is how to work new regulations. We probably need to make some changes there. Director Murphy, do you have something you'd like to add here or kind of guide us along?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. As you mentioned, this is the first tattoo artist establishment we've had before us in probably at least 20 years. It was not zoned for it. The town planning board had changed zoning to prohibit them about 20 years ago. But now, as tattooing is, let's say more mainstream now, the planning board changed the zoning in town to allow tattooing businesses to locate in town. Tonight, we have Mark Hollis from Spilt Milk in Hyannis that wishes to relocate into town to businesses they currently own. And we're going to go over the regulation the Board of Health was last looked at in about the year 2001. So a lot of the regulation is still in effect, but I think things have changed obviously a little bit over the last 15 years that we can modify our regulations with. And I think when we go through the presentation, you're going to see some modernization of tattoo shops itself. They're more open than maybe just closed doors and shops that were, going to room. So I think we'll be looking at those floor plans. I think the location, the 48 West Yarmouth Road, is next to King's breakfast, lunch, and breakfast place for people for a reference where that would go, sandwiched between that and the putt there, kind of on the Yarmouth-Barnstable line, the old treasure chest gift shop that was in there. So they own both, and they're in the process of renovating that. So there'll be modifications made to the business. And as we looked at their proposed renovations that we will have show a floor plan to our current regulations that we look at, they should be in compliance with the intent of all the regulations. We'll point out as we go through the number of sinks that will be available. I think that will be sufficient. And we can talk about what the artists need for tattooing themselves within the establishments, and whether TB and hepatitis is still needed, and what do we need for blood pathogen courses. And I think the step is we want to go through that part of the presentation and get a vote for the board to move forward with the shop itself. I think the second part of the discussion will be for a meeting, Board of Health next meeting, November 7th, where we'll talk about guest tattooists and body piercing. We'll talk a little bit today because we have the owner here on guest tattooing, because that's something that Provincetown allows, some other places allow, and he would like to bring in top tattooists from around the country to come here in the summer to do their tattooing. So I think that's the general background, and we can point out more as we look at it. I can say Jay and myself have visited the shop with both you board members, so we have a feel for the operation itself.
Just in sense of running the meeting, how should we address the issue of this business perhaps not meeting the current regulations? In other words, whether it's space or type of walls, number of sinks and so on. We've discussed that, but what's the best way to handle that now?
It's interesting because the regulation doesn't have a section for variance like we used to see in our septic or housing or animals. So I think if the board looks at it as, are they meeting the intent of the regulation? I think we can look at it that way. I think as we go forward, looking at the regulation, amending the regulation in the future to allow guest artists, time periods, and what we want from criteria, when we redo the regulation, I believe anything that we add from meeting with the owner, Mark, he will be able to meet them in the future. So I don't think we're easing up on anything that wouldn't be in compliance the next time we updated anything.
Certainly, looking at the regulations, P-Town, it's like a small novel. So it's going to take some work on our part I know, Charles, you volunteered as well to look at it and seeing of putting a new set together. The other issue I think is important is here that the regulations need to be done in a manner that whoever, if someone wants to open up another business here for body art, to keep that in mind, and make sure that everyone keeps the same standards. I think that's important, having visited the shop, and it was very impressive and so on, but you don't know who would be in front of the door, in front of the board next time.
Right. And I think we have talked to Provincetown, the director of health there, and called down. We do have some written communication from them. And the main thing is they're going to look at their regulations. They also feel, even though there's what year did we say, Jay? 14?
2016, I think.
16. So they're going to look at them, even though they're a lot newer than ours. They feel that there's a lot of areas that need to be modified within their regulations also.
Looking at it, it seemed that way to me.
Yeah. So,
I have a question. I'm wondering, since Mark's current business, Spilt Milk in Hyannis, has been operating for 20 years, and he said without any problems of which he's aware, why are we not looking at Barnstable's regulations? Presuming that Hyannis doesn't have their own, but rather goes with the town of Barnstable's.
we look at possible.
Yeah, Mary, the two most comprehensive, we were trying to find to be the most comprehensive regulations. We found that the town of Quincy was a leader in this also, and Provincetown, Barnstable, and not to be critical in any way, but they're even more dated. We're trying to find the best so that we're modeled after the most
Right.
new and modern. This is about trying to modernize regulations and have the best thinking, and those are the ones that we found to be that we would want to pull from to
Okay.
make sure that we've updated. But no, it's a good thinking. You say, gee, why not in the town that he's in? I think it's more important to have the best regulations and the most modern and up-to-date regulations, and those are the two. Quincy and Provincetown we found to be the most effective.
And is Quincy's more up to date than Provincetown's?
They were very similar. I think Provincetown is very thorough, but they also include body piercing in with theirs. So there's a lot going on. I think as Provincetown looks at it again, they're going to take out some items that they don't feel is relevant anymore. So
Okay.
the regulations that we have now, when we compare them, are still very good, very including a lot of important stuff that would be left in there.
However, I hadn't realized, because we didn't receive it at the last meeting, that Yarmouth has prohibited piercing by regulation.
Yes, and I think that's going to be a separate meeting down the road. We're probably going to have, Mark will be back in to discuss guest tattooing at that meeting a little tonight. Then we're going to discuss it. The board will discuss it more at our next meeting. The body piercing, yes, the board did not allow scarification and implants, and that will probably continue. The limited body piercing, some of it was required only by a physician. So I think that's really probably changed in some areas that could be body pierced on the body. So I think that's been probably more modernized over the last 20 years.
But we have not had any practice here to,
And
Right.
correct, no, but he'll be coming back to us for that. Because the person that he's looking to bring in, that we'll have more discussions with, is a person that solely does body piercing, that has a wealth of experience, a number of years of experience.
Yeah, once again, the concern is someone else coming in who's done it for 3 weeks before wanting to open up and might be quite capable with less experience, and we have to make some decisions here. That's all. We have some standards that we feel comfortable with. That's all.
So I think with that, I think I can introduce Mark to the board and to the public, and he can, you have his bio description in front of you, 3 pages. We have it up on the screen just to follow a little bit, but I think Mark can kind of go over what his history is, as what he's done in his experience as being an artist, his background, and how he's operated at Spilt Milk over the last 20 years.
Excellent. Good evening, Mark Corliss. I just wanted to thank the board for coming out to the studio and giving the time to check out what we've been doing. The beginning of what I wrote up for you guys, I kind of did a paragraph on how New York City made tattooing illegal in '61. There was, it was a different time. Tattooing was looked down upon. They blamed tattooing for hepatitis, while there was in the midst of a huge spike in intravenous drug use, but it still went back to tattooing. It was the tattoo studio's fault. So there's always been a very negative light on tattooing. It's something I've dealt with for 27 years. I have a bachelor's in criminal justice. I'm a disabled veteran. I was an Army Ranger. And that's probably what the last thing most people would think that a tattooer would have for a background. So I guess the point of that for me was that translated into the regulations that Massachusetts adopted, I think in '99 or 2000. So they brought in these regulations that were, I'm speculating, but kind of seemed to scare away wanting to have tattoo studios. And there was also, in fairness, the fear of the unknown. I've been at Spilt Mill for 20 years. We've never had one issue with the health board. We tattoo thousands of people a year. People fly in. It's a very, positive, successful part of Main Street, in my opinion. So I think when we look back at some of the regulations, they might have been unfair for tattoo studios. So it's tattooing now is a whole different world. It's a multi-million dollar industry. It's on TV. Most towns have a tattoo shop. If you watch the Patriots on Sunday, almost every single player has a huge tattoo. So it's not looked down upon like it used to. So in my world, it's a very positive, atmosphere. We tattoo everyone. We tattoo the police. We tattoo the town workers, we tattoo the politicians, we tattoo the kids, obviously over 18, nurses, doctors, everybody, seems to be getting a tattoo. So it's become a very mainstream, accepted, positive part of the community. My wife and I run huge fundraisers out of the studio, something that most people wouldn't think would happen in a tattoo studio because of the negative light. At the end of the day, we're just another business that's trying to, employ people in the community and feed our families. So I guess, my goal is to bring our business to Yarmouth, do our part in, kind of revitalizing 28 and being a positive part of the town.
Thank you.
Mark, are you going to close your Spilt Milk shop in Hyannis?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we'll just, thank you for the background. We'll move you on to I think we have a floor plan up next.
Yes.
Good.
Would you like me to explain it?
Yeah,
Would you like me to get up?
no,
Okay.
because then they won't be able to hear you to talk.
Gotcha. Okay.
If you can the board has the floor plan in their packet. So if you could just kind of walk them through from when you come in the front door of the desk.
Yes, sir. Okay. So if you walk in the front door, directly in front of you will be around an 18-foot front desk. There'll probably be 2 managers working so they can help people get signed in, give them any paperwork they need, help them meet with their tattooer. And then to the right, you'll see waiting. And also when you first walk in the front entrance, there'll be waiting areas there. Most of the time, we don't really encourage a large amount of people to be in the studio, especially since COVID. So we don't allow someone to bring someone with them into the tattoo area. So occasionally you might have somebody sitting and waiting for that person if they gave them a ride or a friend. If you go past the desk, you'll see 2 entrances. Those blue lines are 48-inch walls. And behind there will be the tattoo area that is more of an open floor plan. There'll be 2 sinks, so all the artists will be easily, able to wash their hands. To the right, under op, is 2 private rooms. We're required to have private rooms in case somebody opts for, privacy when they're receiving their tattoo. And then to the right of that will be a clean room for cleaning any instruments that need to be sterilized. Down the hallway, we have 2 ADA full bathrooms. Across the hall from the 2 bathrooms is, and for the future, possibly a laser room where we would obviously down the road have to speak with you lengthy on possibly doing laser. Then if you look to the left of the desk, that's another tattoo area. There'll be room for 2 more artists in there, just a little bit separated from the main area. The red wall is full, so that will now create a drawing room where the artist can draw away from the public. And then to the left of there is an office that will be shared with the coffee shop next door. Basically, our goal in the open area style is it creates more of a welcoming atmosphere for people. You're not leading them off into an empty room. It's become more popular, especially since COVID, because of the open air. We found that it's much easier to keep yourself separated 6 feet if you don't have to be inside a room to speak to another one of the employees or a customer. That's how we do it at this right here. This is probably one of the most popular studios in Manhattan, Kings Avenue, and that's how they. That's basically how they have it set up. It's called an open floor plan. It's just a little bit more relaxed setting. It's also for liability. There's other people viewing what's going on. No one can say that something was done inappropriately, like in a closed room. So, for example, we don't need a second person to come in, like I say, in a doctor's office. It's definitely, something for us. It's very important to us since COVID is keeping our employees and our customers safe. And we feel this is probably the best way to do it. We're not sure if COVID will come back. It will come back this year, or will there be something similar? So it's something that we definitely take very serious.
So Mark, how many operators will be in that open area?
Mary, there's approximately 1,500 square feet. It's required, I think, to have 50 square feet. So we would like to double that and probably have anywhere from 10 to 15 artists. Probably only in the height of the season, maybe July, August, something like that. For most of the year, we're probably looking at 6 artists.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think the important part to look at this is the current regulation that we have says you need at least 45 square feet for each tattooist. It's kind of more open, like a barber shop, hair salon now, where people just feel the energy of the place. So I think you see that here. I mean, it's kind of a little tight. I don't know if it's the photo area of it, but the floor plan that you just did see would show, even in an open space, that he would have at least 45 square feet around each one. So we're comfortable with that. If you can, also the clean room here, while we're right on this floor plan, do you want to just say what the clean room's for and your how you take care of your equipment, disinfecting and washing and everything?
Yes, sir. So basically the only thing that is reused in tattooing is a steel grip that the needle slides through. Many people opt to, use a plastic one that's throwaway. A lot of older artists like myself use steel. It's better for your hands. And what happens is after you're done using it, you need to soak it in a solution, a germicidal solution, and then you need to put it into an ultrasonic cleaner where it basically vibrates any particles off the metal. Then you need to scrub it, rinse it, and then it goes into the autoclave for half an hour. And also once a month, we test the autoclave. We have a spore test. In my 20 years, we've never not passed a spore test. It's simple science that actually works very, very well. So we're really lucky to have that. And we also have 2 autoclaves. So if we do have anything, happens to one of them, we have a backup right away. And that's the clean room. That's separated from everything else, especially, from clients. And also, I'd like to add that we have all of our managers and our desk people are trained in understanding bloodborne pathogens. So something like that, them being around the clean room is okay for them. We don't
Okay,
just,
good. We'll go back to that shop, just the opening setting that, that's the way you probably see more shops going now. I think that's the style of shops going forward. People feel comfortable getting their tattoo there, but there are, as we saw, 2 separate rooms depending where people are getting tattoos on their body or how comfortable they feel. And there's 2 separate rooms, and there's another room that's a larger that would have 2 people in it also. So there's different options available for people coming in. So you also see individual lighting at each of the people. So there'll be regular overhead lighting that Mark had talked about, but then there'll also be individual lighting. The board has a certain candle wattage that's needed. So I think you're still planning to have individual lighting that we talked about.
Yeah, yes, sir. Our lighting will far surpass what you would ever want. And that's probably one of the most important things in tattooing and the hardest to achieve is enough light. So I bet you we'll probably have too much light, if anything.
Okay, good.
I have a question. This floor plan that you've proposed, what have you done with this to improve on what you have in your Hyannis location?
Mary, here as far as the floor plan here is much larger. The Hyannis location is only 1,500 square foot of the whole entire building. That's bathrooms, drawing, storage. This is actually just our tattoo area is 1,500 square foot here. So we'll just have I think it's a lot more room to keep the area even cleaner. Everything will have its place. We'll have a tremendous amount of storage upstairs and in the office. The tattoo area is actually a lot wider than what we have now. So you could stagger people at even a greater distance. You'd probably be, I'd say, 20 feet away from another artist and client. The studio now is a lot smaller. The only difference is we have some small partition walls, but we wouldn't have those here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, do you want to just scroll through, Erica, a couple of the other parts of his presentation? This talks about a guest artist, and I think we'll come back to that. We'll come back to that one, Erica. If we can just say, this is if you want to just explain this one, I think you have a letter from the doctor on this one.
Yes, sir. This was from Cape and Islands Plastic Surgery. I worked there part-time. I was doing their nipple reconstruction for their breast cancer patients. So they just kind of sent along a letter, just kind of reiterating the seriousness that we have in our business, just to help the board understand a little bit, how serious this is for us and how it's not kind of the days that have gone past of tattooing.
And you still work with them there. You worked at their facility, then they come over here. That's also an important part of your business.
Yes. What I do is I reconstruct nipples for patients that lost them to surgery. And I would do it in their office before, but it was just a lot of work packing up the equipment. So I decided I could get a lot more done more efficiently in my own studio. I've been doing it 10 years now almost, and I've done thousands of patients. They fly in, all the big surgeons from Boston, New York City, send their patients to me. It's a lot more substantial than I anticipated. I could do it 7 days a week, but unfortunately I don't have that kind of time. But it's a big part of Spilt Milk, and many people travel. I'm doing 8 sets of them tomorrow. Some of the people fly in from, I have a woman from Georgia tomorrow morning. So it's a very important part of the business. It's a very positive part. It's tough. It's very sad, but it's actually, it's really, fun to do our part in helping.
Okay.
And that's something you'll continue, Mark?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I'm booked till next June as of right now. Unfortunately.
So you can't stop at least till then.
No, no. Unfortunately, it's busier than I could imagine. It's very sad.
Wow, it is. Yep. Well, thank you for doing it.
Thank you.
Um, This is, let's come back to that one, the certificate there. You just want to, we got a couple articles that we've included for the board that you could just mention to the board and to the public that some of your background that the shop has done?
Yes, a couple of years ago, I did a show at the Cape Cod Museum of Art, which was a lot of fun. We really got to show the public, all the different styles of tattooing. I do large scale Japanese full bodies. So it was a lot of fun for people on the Cape to see who might just be into lighthouses and beach paintings to actually see that tattooing is a legitimate art form. And then we did a big question and answering. So it was a lot of people that have never really seen into the world of serious tattooing. So it was very educational and a lot of fun. It was great to be I was actually really pleased to be asked because, like I said, you normally think of beaches and, lighthouses.
Good.
This was Cape Cod Healthcare, did a story on the nipple tattooing. That was 2017. We had a couple, we had some companies reach out and want to sponsor it, but at the time I was doing it for free. I think I did the first 500 sets for free, so I didn't want to accept any money from any of the companies. And that was just BuzzFeed. That was one of the largest internet kind of sharing sites. Did a story on it, and this was right when I started, and I think it was 15 or 16, I forget, or 17. But this is when it really it blew up. Countrywide, people started flying in. There's a lack of artists doing this for women, and definitely a lack of artists that are doing it for women that's affordable. So it just exploded for us. Oh, and this was about a month or two ago. A young man in Marston's Mills was killed on a motorcycle, and we ended up we stayed till I think 2 a.m. and tattooed the whole family. It was another sad story, but it was a lot of fun. We got to tattoo the brother and the sister, and the mom was there. So it was just a really cool, positive story that CBS came out and did.
Yeah, it's a sad tragedy for the family in the Cape.
It was horrible.
A lot of his schoolmates came to you also. And I think you brought in another couple guest tattooists to help you do all these people. And I think you worked through the night.
Oh yeah, I think we did 23 tattoos, and we started at 8 o'clock at night, but we made sure we got them all done. It was a unique experience, to say the least.
He was a well-known student at the high school in Barnstable, was just ready to go to Mass Maritime. He was a
Yep.
great fisherman. So the tattoo you put on everybody was
Yeah, we did a moon with a young man sitting on it fishing, and it said
Oh.
it's all good underneath. It's all good. It was like his saying. So it was like I said, it was a horrible story, but it was great to put a smile on the family's face.
well, thank you.
And this was just an article that I forget the Cape Media magazine. I forget the name. I'm sorry. They did an article on us bringing the coffee shop to West Yarmouth. I think everybody was excited for that. The building hadn't done much for a long time.
It's great.
Oh, and this is the coffee shop does a pink donut every October, and we give all the proceeds to Cape Wellness Collaborative. I think the first year we did it, we raised $27,000. It was a lot of donuts, a lot of donuts.
Are we down there this week? Is it the special this weekend?
Sure is. We're selling them like crazy.
I had one.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, this was just another story at the museum.
I think that,
Yeah, I think that's.
I think that-
I don't like to toot my own horn, but if you knew anything about me, you'd know that. But this was just us trying to show kind of the positive side of tattooing and what it can bring to a community.
I think that's, oh, yep. This is your last one, I believe.
Yes, I believe.
Okay.
I
Okay.
have a few questions, just general kind of things.
Yes.
Compared to the amount of people you served in Hyannis, since your space is going to be larger and all, about how many people do you think will come in for tattoos in the Yarmouth location a year? Just ballpark.
Mary, I mean, I do 2 appointments a day myself, so that won't change as far as myself. I would say, you know, we're probably going to add a few more artists around for the whole year.
Mhm.
And then in the summer, you know, we'd like to add a significant amount of artists for the summertime. But I mean, it's tough to say. In a winter day, we'll probably do 5 people, and in a
Mhm.
summer day, we could do 20.
And I have no idea, but what is the range of price for a tattoo?
Tattoos go anywhere, like a minimum. If you want a really small tattoo, it's about $120. And then if you sit for a full session, it might be $400 or $500 for 4 or 5 hours.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know you mentioned it when we spoke, your timetable, maybe you could share that with the public. What do you think's coming up time-wise to open up?
We're hoping around the beginning of the year. There's a significant amount of work as far as a building permit because the building is so large. It falls under certain commercial criteria. So we're navigating through that. And we also need a new septic system. And we need a new gas line. So we got the chips stacked against us, but we're hoping January, you know, late December, January, something like that. As of right now, we sold the location in Hyannis and we're renting back. So we're hoping that we can get it done, you know, sooner than later so that we all have a place to, you know, my employees and myself have a place to make a living.
Does the health department have an inspection sheet? So when someone goes in from your department, they know what to look for. Do we have one?
We would develop one. The last time we had a tattoo shop 35 years ago, we just had we just bring the regulations in with us and look for general cleanliness and so forth. So we would develop one. There's ones out there. It's kind of like a checklist that we would do. Before we jump into the code and what we might have to take out that's part of his consent, can you just say what you provide, who you provide tattoos for by age, and what you do for aftercare and some of the forms that you have the people fill out?
Yes, sir. So you have to be 18 in Mass. No matter what someone tries to tell you, you can't have any sort of parental consent. It's illegal, anything under 18. And after somebody is tattooed, we supply them with aftercare instructions. It has our phone number on it. It has, you know, basically our email, a way to get a hold of us. And it's basically we keep the aftercare instructions as simple as possible. So there's less room for error. And then if someone ever does have an issue with their tattoo healing, or it's normally not an issue, they just think it is, we have them come in so we can look at it personally. I can't remember the last time I saw an infection. You know, occasionally somebody might have some scabbing. Everybody's body's different, but as long as everyone treats their tattoo properly, you know, stays out of a pond or a hot tub for a few days, we never normally have any issues.
Very good. On type of overall training or course training, I'm thinking on skincare or blood waste. I think that we had talked about there's an online course that people are able to take.
Yes, there's I believe the Red Cross and any, you know, of the larger services have a bloodborne pathogen course that I think is imperative that we have. It just teaches you the proper ways to remove gloves. It teaches you about cross-contamination. There's not really much out there that actually can help a tattoo artist other than in my opinion, is the bloodborne pathogen is definitely very imperative. It's like, that's what we do for our manager, anyone that's in the studio working, just so they understand cross-contamination. We don't want someone going in and touching something and going and having lunch without washing their hands.
And I think that was the point I was bringing back to the board, is that's probably one thing that the board would want to leave in the regulation requirement now, that a bloodborne pathogen course be taken by anybody, any artist working within the tattoo shop. I would say that would be required, but I'm not sure in today's standards whether we still need hepatitis and TB testing. So that could come out and leave the bloodborne course in, and that would be for everybody that works there, or any guest that comes in, even from another state, they could always take that online. I think there's enough sufficient space for sinks that have been shown on there. So I would think that my opinion in talking to Jay, as we reviewed it by staff, that their proposal that you see before us in floor plan meets the intent of what the Board of Health regulation is. And I think that would be only discussion, Mr. Chairman, on the hepatitis and TB. Your thoughts?
I don't think it's necessary, quite frankly, anymore. I don't know what the standards are in other businesses, people, you know, who run them. From a medical standpoint of view, I think things have changed.
I agree, sir, 100%. I mean, TB was originally for someone that was around a lot of intravenous drug users and or, you know, the elderly, or I believe certain parts of South America. I'm not sure why I got rolled into tattooing. But in Barnstable, we're not required to do the TB. But no, I have to agree with you.
I mean, to be the safe side, really, when you're dealing with someone's skin or bodily fluids, it's always safe to assume someone's HIV positive and hepatitis positive. You know, that's
Universal
active
precautions. We treat everyone.
hepatitis.
Yes,
It's for your staff,
correct.
for sure.
I couldn't agree more.
In our regulations, I don't know if you have a copy in front of you or not, but I see that on page 8 and 9, looks like it says health history, client records, and release form, and they're listing that the body art practitioner shall request from the client in writing the following health history information, and lists a number of medical problems, diseases, including diabetes, hemophilia, epilepsy, aspirin, nonsteroidal. Where's that now? In other words, are there some contraindications for some potential clients that, you know, come in? What should we know about?
Well, we normally do a release form for every client, or we have to do a release form for every client. We take a picture of their ID on the back to make sure it's definitely them. That kind of coincides with the age requirement. We have to make sure we're definitely tattooing someone over 18. There's normally a question that may say, do you have any health risks that will, impair the healing of a tattoo or whatnot? But like you said, we treat everyone, the same. Everyone has to, as far as, health, universal precautions, we have to treat everyone as if they're HIV positive. You wouldn't treat somebody that is differently, because we're treating everyone that way. And I have seen recently that it does get down into legality things about asking people stuff like that. For example, if somebody is HIV positive, we can't turn them away legally. That's a lawsuit, that's going to happen. So we definitely on our release form do ask, though, if someone has anything that we should know about. If somebody, is, they take a lot of aspirin, we ask them, well, maybe you should come back and, take a little bit less aspirin. Or if they're really, to be perfectly honest, if there's anything that they're worried about, then I say, please talk to your doctor first. I'm not a medical professional. I'm not sure if what blood thinners would cause an issue or what wouldn't. So I normally just say, please speak to your doctor. And that's, normally the safest way for us.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I think there's someone that wants to, someone has their hand raised.
That's great. Okay,
When your time is right.
let's go right now.
I mean, just if you're questioning.
Okay.
Okay, someone's out there like to address the board?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Tom Nicanella from the very historic village of Bass River. And, just watching this evening, first I want to say thank you all for the Board of Health members for all that you do, your hard work, and the great work of our Board of Health staff in Town Hall. It's the healthiest department in the building, as I said. And, Mr. Corliss, first, thank you very much for your service, and thank you for investing in our community. I've been on the board of directors for the Chamber of Commerce for many years, past president, part of the business community, and that part of town is our gateway. And for many years, it wasn't really a beautiful gateway, and you and your family have done a remarkable job in bringing that building back to life. And I know it's old. I know it needs some input and some love, but you're the best person to do that. So thank you very much. It's going to be exciting. Tattoos were allowed in Yarmouth for many years, and then they were on the north side. And I know that when you purchased the building, you wanted to do this earlier, and so now's the chance. And I hope you succeed. Mr. Chairman, you talked about other tattoos coming into town. Well, Mr. Corliss has probably the highest standard that is out there. We're all aware of tattoo shops, and we've seen our good and our bad ones. But this is, above and beyond. And I think that if Spilt Milk once opens up, the standard will be set for other ones if they choose to come to our town, and we welcome them. We need a lot more business in town to take care of our wastewater for the future. So we're looking to, have as many as possible. But the standard as Spilt Milk has out there, and the reputation, and this is kind of ironic here on Breast Cancer Awareness Month that we're talking about this. It's just like it should fit, right? So with that, I won't keep a meeting long, but thank you for investing in our community, and thank you for helping all those women out there to bring them back to somewhat of normalcy. Breast cancer is terrible, as we know. Any type of cancer is not happy, but at least you bring joy to people, and that's what our community is all about, making sure our residents and our guests are happy. So with that, have a good night.
Thank you, sir.
Well stated. Thank you. Charlie? Any questions, comments?
I have been to both locations. I have also talked to a few of his customers. One of them happens to be my daughter.
Well, all right.
And, she has nothing but good to say about all the actions that she's been through. So, I take that from somebody that's been there before I make any great decisions. And as far as the regulations, all I can tell you is I think Provincetown had enough, maybe a few more than are necessary. There's some we could eliminate, and the last thing any business in this town is regulate them out of business. I'd appreciate having him right where he's going to be. I've seen that particular section being under construction for a while, and I've been in it and seen what he's going to do in there. And personally, I'm grateful.
Thank you.
Good. Okay, thanks. I think the most difficult thing, in the sense of regulations for us, so time consuming, is going to be just the guest body art technicians and how to handle that.
And I think that will be something we can discuss at the next meeting.
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
tonight you're probably just looking for a motion to approve the business license request, making the intent of, with meeting the intent of the current regulation, excluding the requirement of TB and hepatitis. but requiring the bloodborne course. Would be my comment.
Right, the only other thing we picked out was a floor plan that
Correct.
it meets requirements or that has to be passed by you is fine.
Correct.
I mean, just, dealing with walls and so on. Guess what, Mary? You think you can put this together for us?
Took care of that.
You're on mute right now, just. to
Sorry,
help
I'm
us.
sorry.
I'd
There's
be
another
most-
phone call going on. I'm sorry. I'm still a little unclear. We have regulations that are in existence, but they are not up to date.
Okay.
Right.
So
I
I would think that a motion from us would include that the business would be in compliance with any future updated regulations, given that we would certainly discuss them with the business person ahead of time, and it would be done in good faith. So I'd be willing to make a motion
Okay.
to somewhat to that effect.
Good. We have just a point of discussion on that, Mary. We did sit down with Mark on that and reviewed what potential regulations we might be looking at from Provincetown, and he was quite comfortable saying that he could meet any future requirements the board might add. So
Okay,
he is aware there might be something coming more than just guest artists. There might be something else, but he felt comfortable with being able to meet anything the board developed in the future. And has also stated that he would like to help in any of the discussions in the future as the board takes the deliberation of adding additional things that he has some insight that might be helpful.
absolutely. I would think that would happen. Yes.
Mary,
So,
thank you.
I guess what I'm going to say then is that I move that the Yarmouth Board of Health approve the proposed business plan and layout for a new body art shop in Yarmouth that will comply with existing regulations, with the exception of the tuberculosis and hepatitis piece of our existing regulations, and will comply with updates to our regulations after a full discussion with the board.
Thank you, Mary. Is there? Great, thank you. Any further discussion? I doubt it. Good. Okay, so all in favor, raise your hand, and say aye.
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous.
Carry on, Macduff.
So, congratulations.
Congratulations, but before we move them, because I know you're going to be coming back at the board's next meeting, November 7th, on guest tattooing, can you just explain what your thought of a guest person, what they would be required to have for a criteria? We know they're going to have the bloodborne course, but what would they have to be an artist? I mean, what standard would you be looking for somebody to come into work your shop?
Yes, sir. So the point of having a guest artist is exchanging knowledge, bringing in some people in the summer months when, unfortunately it's harder to get people to move here, housing, stuff like that. So we could actually get someone to come and stay for a couple weeks and tattoo. And basically we're talking of elite artists, artists that are been tattooing 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years. We're not looking to bring in amateurs or anything. This is, the top elite artists. And basically, they're all going to be coming from well-known studios. They would obviously have to have a current permit wherever they are, whether it be New York City, New Hampshire, California. So, and then they would also have to have the bloodborne pathogen course that we require. I would, as a formality, I think is a good idea, just to make sure that they do have it. We also, and for them to come and work at our studio, we have to have some sort of permit for them to fall under our liability insurance. So that's one of the reasons. Many studios all over the world just let people come and visit. No one asks, no one tells, but we're looking to kind of set up more of a professional, honest relationship with the town. We would also like to do it consistently and, make it, it becomes more of an attraction for the tourists they can come get tattooed from a famous guy from California. But these people would be, obviously coming in under my resident permit. And they would have a, just a temporary permit in the time that they're allowed would, the board would obviously decide. It's basically, they're under me, I have to be there, or, another resident artist has to be there for them to work. But these are all people that we know, they're highly trained, they're highly respected in the community. We wouldn't be looking to bring somebody in that just can tattoo. These are, phenomenal artists. And it creates kind of a buzz for the locals also. The local people that live on the Cape get excited because they can get tattooed by the guy that they love his work, but they're never going to travel to California.
So with allowing this as the board goes forward, that you would probably start publicizing this the first of the year, that, make an appointment for such and such well-known artist, tattoo artist coming in July or June or August. So because I know you book up 6 months, 8 months ahead of time, that people are going to say, oh, this person's well-known, he's coming in, but he's going to be so booked up.
Correct. Yeah. If this all works out, what we would like to do then is we create a list of, we basically advertise it to the artist, and then we create a list of artists and when they want to come. And then you would put the list out to the public, and, it would say John Doe is coming July 17th, and they can then make an appointment with him.
Right.
We would have a lot of legwork to get the permits together to then bring to you, showing their credentials. But I think it's worth it. It just creates something really fun and awesome in the summer for the locals and the tourists.
Last point I just want to follow up is that there is national and conventions tattooists around the country. I think there was just one recently, Pennsylvania, was it that you were at?
Yes.
And I know you're too humble to say anything, but you did receive an award, first
Yes,
place
yeah,
award.
I received Best Japanese Tattoo down there. It's a lot of fun. You travel there. It's normally like a convention center or a small area, and it's, full of tattooers, and the locals from that area all can come there and get a tattoo.
Yeah.
It just kind of spreads the art out there. There's a lot to the tattoo world that many people don't know about. And it just makes it accessible to the person that can't travel to California. So it creates almost a mecca for everyone in that area in Pennsylvania to come get a tattoo from a really experienced artist.
Well, congratulations on your award also.
Thanks so much.
I have one more comment. Mark, you also mentioned an apprenticeship program, which I think is a great idea, but we haven't talked about it. Is this something you would be planning for later? And of course, we would have to discuss then, just like we're discussing the guest requirements.
Yes, ma'am. So the kind of gray area in tattooing is you show up, you check off the boxes that the town or state requires, and you're now a quote unquote tattooer. My recommendation is that we do need some sort of apprentice program to protect the town for the future, to set a precedent, because you just can't come in and check off the box. It's hard to put into words, but the requirements to the town and then the actual artistic requirements and mechanical requirements of tattooing is so much different. So I think that, for someone to get a resident permit in Yarmouth, they need to have a permit somewhere else before, showing that they've been a tattooer. And if they don't have that, then they need to do an apprenticeship where they're sponsored by a resident tattooer. And that's really the only way to protect from anyone just showing up and tattooing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really clear answers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Really, it's helpful. It's educational for all of us.
I appreciate the time. I know this is something new for the town, and I'm here to offer any help, any help I can give. I've done this a long time, and I have nothing but good intentions.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. We have a lot of responsibility to get these regulations going. All right. So we'll do the best we can.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Great.
Appreciate it.
Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Okay, we're up to the third item. This is an update, Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And underneath it's saying Independence House, Hyannis, Massachusetts. Director Murphy, anything?
Yes, we have three people that are here tonight that they can come right up front. I think you're.
Okay, just come on up, introduce yourself.
You wanna-
Even-
Present it.
You have my PowerPoint? Okay. Is there a click on it? Sitting still. Okay, so thank you for inviting us to come speak about this tonight.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, really excited to be able to talk about it. Okay, so my name's Annie Catalano.
A little closer to the microphone.
Okay,
You can move the microphone. You don't have to move.
no one ever tells me I'm quiet. Okay.
Thank you.
I'm Annie Catalan. I'm the Victim Services Specialist Advocate at the Yarmouth Police Department. I've been there full-time since 2018, and the main purpose of my job is to provide safety planning and support services to victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, and stalking. So just a little caveat before we kind of get started is that I'm going to use some terminology that may not sound correct to everybody, but essentially some important things to understand is the work that I do is based on what comes into the police department. The majority of people that are reporting are in heterosexual relationships. They are usually the female is the victim and the male is the perpetrator. People typically identify as male or female. We don't have a lot of transgender people reporting, but all of these people, races, ages, incomes, everything is affected by domestic violence. That's just not typical of what we see at the police department. It's based on what comes in. So I just kind of want to give a little caveat to the words I'm going to use. But so a little bit of quick education. Is it okay if I stand up?
You
Absolutely.
have to take the
Take
microphone.
my phone. Okay, just want to okay. So just kind of looking at the cycle of violence here, just to give you a little bit of understanding of what's happening when someone's in a domestic violence relationship, is that this is what's occurring. So there's some tension going on. People feel like they're walking on eggshells. They don't understand what's happening. They're afraid. They know something bad's going to happen. Then there's some kind of violent incident. After the violent incident is the kind of honeymoon phase. So when that's happening, things feel good. People apologize, people buy gifts, people go on vacation, and they think it's never going to happen again. But because they're stuck in this cycle, it happens again. There's more tension, there's more violence. And sometimes this honeymoon phase goes away completely. And people just go back and forth between tension and violence, and tension and violence. And that's when things tend to escalate and get to really dangerous places. And it feels so difficult to be able to get out of this cycle because it's really dangerous for someone to leave a domestic violence relationship. Someone is 85% more likely to be murdered by their partner when they leave a domestic violence relationship. So just think about that for a second. If someone tells you you're 85% more likely to be murdered, you're probably not going to do what that thing is. And in this case, it would be leave a violent relationship. So just a little bit of quick education there. I just want to do one more slide. This is a power and control wheel. So to ultimately just understand that what's happening in a domestic violence relationship is about power and control. It's about nothing else. It's not about drugs and alcohol. It's not about finances. It's not about mental health. It's about power and control and nothing else. So essentially, what we have on here are the 10 tactics of power and control that someone uses to gain and maintain, gain and maintain power and control over their intimate partner. There's emotional abuse, there's isolation, minimizing, denying, and blaming. They use children, intimidation, coercion, threats, male privilege, economic abuse. All of these things are what's going on in a domestic violence relationship. So, and a lot of these things happen in not domestic violence relationships when there's an equal partnership, things are shared, all that kind of stuff. But when it looks like this, or it looks like multiple of these pieces going on at once, that's what somebody is experiencing. And when you're in it, it's really hard to know that this is what's happening to you. And a lot of people don't have education about this. So they just think, oh, maybe this is what marriage is supposed to be. This is what family looks like. And a lot of times people will grow up in a household like this. So that's what they think love is. That's what they think family is. So when they find it and they're in it, they're like, oh, well, this is just what I thought life was supposed to be. And they don't even know what's going on. And they don't know that there's anything they can do about it. So, okay. All right, I'm going to sit down now. Thank you. Okay. Oh my goodness. Okay, sorry. Okay, so essentially, my position exists because of a federal VAWA grant. VAWA stands for Violence Against Women Act. The grant has been in place since 2018, and the goals of the grant first were to hire a full-time advocate, which we have done, that's why I'm here, establish policies and protocols to provide efficient response strategies. So part of that is we created a special victims unit within our detective division. And essentially that means that anytime there is a long-term court case that goes on, we work together, myself and the detective and anyone else involved in the investigation, to stay in contact with that person over a long period of time. We go to meetings together through the criminal justice system, get supports in place, whatever it is that they need over a long period of time. I also participate in the Cape Cod Domestic Violence High Risk Task Force. So any cases that are extremely high risk and extremely violent, I bring those to the task force and we discuss the case amongst us. So it's Independence House, the Sheriff's Department, the District Attorney's Office, probation, all of those players in the same room talking about the case and what we can do to best support that person and keep them as safe as we can. And I also train patrol officers. So whenever a new officer is hired, part of their training is to sit with me for a couple hours and just kind of go over all the stuff that I do in my job and let them sort of understand how we all kind of work together. Because some of them are brand new, never been an officer before, and some of them come from other departments that may not have had an advocate. So they don't totally understand who I am and what I'm doing. So we try to just go over all that. And then I also work on strengthening community partnerships. So Independence House, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Duffy Health Center is another big one that I work with a lot, and the District Attorney's Office as well, working on cases, sharing information, and supporting victims throughout their process. Okay, so inside the grant also is our 3 target populations I focus on. So of course, all the people I work with are victims of domestic or sexual assault, domestic violence, sexual assault, and stalking. But in addition to that, I put in extra effort with our aging population. So working with the Yarmouth Senior Center, as well as I sit on the Cape Cod Elder Abuse Coalition with Chris, who you're going to hear from in a few minutes. In terms of substance use disorder is, I think we can all agree, a big thing that we face in our town. And so I currently sit as the co-chair of the Yarmouth Substance Awareness Committee. And I work on a weekly basis with the Recovery Support Navigator at the Duffy Health Center so that people can get connected to their services, get into treatment, recovery, and get support that they need, as well as people with disabilities. I work closely with the Disabled Persons Protection Commission. They have a navigator that works on the Cape with me. So anytime we have a case with somebody that needs extra services focused on their specific disability, they help connect me with those services. Worked with the Kennedy Donovan Center. Just 2 weeks ago, I think I sat on a first responders panel to discuss what we can do in policing and fire to be able to address the needs of people in the community with autism and how we can best support them and help them. And then Living Independently Forever is a program. They're based out of Hyannis, but I had met their director at a meeting with the Disability Network and let them kind of know what I was doing. And then the very next day, they called me to ask me to come in and present about healthy relationships because they had some people in their program that were experiencing a domestic violence situation and they weren't sure how to handle it. So I brought Chris along with me and we talked to them a lot about different kinds of healthy relationships and how to get support. So kind of my basic response on a daily basis is I read through our call log, to all the 911 calls that come in every day. I review the reports and then I follow up with all the victims. So a 209A advisal is essentially 209A rights that a victim has at a domestic violence call. So every time there is a physical or verbal report, the officers give that information to the victim. And on that form, it has the 24-hour crisis hotline for Independence House, as well as my contact information. And then the officers ask them for a safe phone number that I can call them on the next day to follow up and say, I understand this happened last night. How are you doing? What can we do to support you and keep you safe? We also have a danger assessment anytime there's a physical violent incident. It's 20 questions, yes or no, that the officers will ask at the scene. And it helps me understand the level of risk. It also goes into the court folder for all the arrests and goes over to the district attorney's office so they can use that as a way to further adjudicate the case. And we also have new strangulation worksheets that we put into play about a year ago. They came out of the Governor's Council for Domestic and Sexual Violence across Massachusetts to be able to better understand what's happening to somebody after they've been strangled in an incident. I make referrals to all kinds of community agencies, housing, financial, food, you name it. Whatever it is, I try to make the most referrals that people need, as well as referrals to court. And then I do my best to accompany victims to any interviews that they have at the police department. If they want to apply for a restraining order, I will meet them over at court. If they have hearings, they have to testify, dangerousness hearings, trials, anything like that. I try to go and be with them. I don't have any sort of legal right to speak in court for them, but I sort of just try to be there as a physical presence so they're not going through it alone, sit with them, whatever kind of support they needed to make them feel more comfortable. These are just some basic statistics over the last 4 years. The total number of reports that involve domestic or sexual violence or stalking is in that category. And then victims served is basically based on the grant that I have and how I have to identify how somebody receives services. Essentially, if I call someone and they don't answer, then that person does not get services. I leave a message. Sometimes people don't have working phone numbers. Sometimes they don't have good phone numbers. Sometimes they say, oh no, I'm fine, I don't want any services. So those people don't get served. So that's kind of the differentiation between those numbers there of the total number of domestic and sexual violence reports versus the amount of people that accepted some kind of service that I offered them, whether it be information about a restraining order, whether it be going to court, anything like that. Do you
So
have a-
these are Yarmouth statistics.
Yes.
So with seeing the victims served decreasing, is that good? Well, it's good,
would
but how
say-
does it go into there
I would
versus
say no.
total reports?
Not good. I mean, the numbers have varied a bit over the last couple of years. I see and looking at them all in the same place. I think that it kind of depends on the year, and I'm not sure that there's a whole lot. The pandemic has certainly affected people's ability to receive the most appropriate services, as well as be willing to receive services, I think. So I would not say that the crime's necessarily decreasing, but the amount of people calling and making reports, I think. I don't know if you would.
Yeah,
agree with that.
my name is Scott Lundgren. Some of you may know me. I'm a sergeant with the police department. So I think the numbers, it's difficult to look at the numbers and say, oh, the number represents a certain trend because we have the pandemic, which really affected a lot of it. But I think we see a lot in domestic violence situations, the unreported violence that occurs between people. Very, very often we see we hear, the department learns about things that have happened in the past that went completely unreported. And I think that's part of, I would defer to Annie, but part of sort of the cycle and the dynamics of the relationship where this power is exerted over one or the other. And so some of these acts of violence go completely unreported, and the department gets involved when it's really come to a head, and there's just sort of nothing else that they can do at that point here. So although it does look like, wow, we're making headway, but I think that overall we're seeing these numbers sort of stay in the range because that's sort of just the affected population here within the town.
Yeah, because you can see the total reports are staying about the same that are coming in. And, it's something that, we're appreciative of all the police does for this. There's a lot domestic that goes on, but then at least Annie's available to follow up on a lot of that. So you're not going back to the same ones as much all the time, that people know they have a support system that you're following up, Annie, than working with Independence House.
Very
Yeah.
good. And I was just going to add one thing, as I'm sure everyone here knows, it's a very, very complicated call that the police department uses. Aside from the fact it's probably statistically one of the most dangerous calls we only have to look at the newspapers to see recently 2 police officers murdered a domestic violence call. So it's very, very unpredictable, generally fraught with a lot of emotion and violence and substance abuse issues. It's really an anything goes. So, kudos to our command staff and some of the detectives and Annie for putting together these programs, which gave our officers something else, something for going in, arresting someone, having a short period of time separated and letting the sand just sort of fall back in, where we're bringing together lots of services, lots of opportunity, lots of resources. Independence House is an incredible resource that we have here on Cape Cod, that the people who are victims really start to look at it and say, I really have options here. It's not just to go not be home and not have my bills paid and not have money for food for our children. It's like these people come together and are really interested in helping me. And they see the police department differently. The police department's like, oh, they just didn't arrest someone, that they sort of brought together people that generally cared about helping our family out of the situation. And they stuck with us. The next day, we started getting phone calls and that people were showing that, you know, that there were resources out there for us and there was hope. So I commend Annie because, you know, the officers, it's very difficult for them to know what to do. They don't have that kind of specific training. They go to these calls. Obviously, we're there to restore order and peace and safety. We're here to enforce the law we're required in the 209A domestic violence laws require us to take actions in many situations. But after that, having someone that can come in and say, here, let's help you take this to the next level and find a solution to the problem so we don't have these ongoing cycles of violence within the town.
Yeah, I do my best to even if somebody isn't willing to accept services, to just thank them for speaking with me over the phone and to say, please give us a call if anything else happens or if you feel unsafe again. And I even tell people you can call me and we can talk about services, even if there's not a police report. So maybe you weren't open to it today, but maybe a week from now you think, oh, I'm gonna call her back and see if there's something I can do. So I try to leave it like really open-ended as much as I can with people. And there's always gonna be people that are gonna say no, and that's their right and that's okay. But I try to be as sort of comforting and welcoming and open as possible so people don't feel like, oh, I can only get help if I call 911 and make a police report. So
Annie, I have a question.
Yeah.
So when you have the number served, is that the number who were willing to speak with you or the number who spoke with you and also got referral for services?
Yes, that's correct. The second one. So people who spoke with me and accepted some kind of service.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anyone have any other questions about these numbers? Okay, and then I think this is my last slide here, some community partnerships. So talking about the work I've done with Independence House. So I used to work at Independence House, so I know them all very well. And that's where I received a lot of my training. So but essentially I refer people to the 24-hour hotline. Again, like I said, it's given out to everyone who's at a domestic violence incident. They have that number. So even if they don't want to call the police again, they have somebody that's safe that they can talk to, who's trained and understands what's going on. Referrals for counseling, that's one of the main things they do over there. They have a lawyer on staff that can give legal advice for people. They have a shelter as well as can help people with shelter situations. Safe Plan are their advocates who work in the courthouse every day that help people get restraining orders, help people apply for restraining orders, I should say. They're wonderful and I work with them a lot because somebody might be on the phone with me and say, oh, I think I want to get a restraining order. I'm feeling unsafe. And I say, okay. And I get their permission to call over and I let the Safe Plan advocate know, like, hey, someone's on their way over. This is what they're going to do. So they have a heads up. They have the paperwork already ready to go. And it helps that person just relieve a little bit of the stress of having to tell their whole story over again at court. And then some events we work on together, White Ribbon Day, which is men standing up against violence against women and all gender-based violence. That happens in March every year. I know you guys have been a big supporter of that as well. The Domestic Violence Awareness Breakfast that just happened in October, and also work on Survivors of Homicide Awareness event that we put together last year based on a response to some loss of some members of our community to domestic violence homicide. So trying to find a way to bring some peace and healing for our community to be together and remember those lives that we have lost. So I think that's my last slide. Yep. Sorry. Okay. Do you guys have any questions?
It sounds like the response team is doing great work.
Absolutely.
Great work.
Yeah.
Question I
Very
have, what happens in town preventatively? In other words, through the education system here, what happens so fewer people even won't be calling you?
That's what Chris is going to talk about.
Part two. Great. Okay. So ignore that.
I mean, I will say that I will take any opportunity such as this to speak to people when I can. And I try to do a lot of the education when I have the audience that I can, to be able to have people just understand what's going on and also that we're here to help support them in whatever way that we can. So
You're doing that tonight with us and the public, at home right
Yeah.
now.
And
Thank you.
we appreciate what, you do and the force does, very much. And we work with Independence House and we try to get you in this month in October, Domestic Violence Month, but then we usually bring you back on White Ribbon Day that month too. So we try to get you back in twice a year to get that message out to the public that services are available.
Yeah, thank you.
Very good, thank you.
And you do some very important work for probably the most vulnerable in our community. You're really to be commended. Thank you for coming. Sergeant,
Yeah.
thank you. And I commend the police department for taking on that initiative. It's easy to look the other way and say that, well, we don't have the problem here. That's just on the news somewhere else. But in your work, incredibly emotional, emotionally charged, but please, you're making an impact. You can see through the numbers that you're making a tremendous impact in the community. Congratulations. You're
I try every day.
wonderful. Yeah, well, you make a difference.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in tonight.
All right.
So I understand there's a part two. Okay. Great.
Thank you. Chris Moran, and I work at Independence House.
Okay.
And Annie mentioned, but it's really nice to have somebody who's been in Independence House, a connection at the police department. So what I wanted to focus on is,
Excuse me
moving
one second. We need to have a quorum here for a meeting. So right now we do not. So I apologize for that.
okay, so,
We need to get Charles here for a quorum. Thank you. So that's for the minutes, okay? Just so we know for the, whatever, a couple of minutes, it's,
We just wanted to thank him for coming in.
I'm sure.
Side issue. Here we go.
Great.
Thank you.
okay.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so, you know, the work of Independence House, Annie has really explained it right here in Yarmouth. And I did want to focus on what if, I mean, what's next? We can talk about the victims all the time, but we really need to, Independence House is charged with prevention as well. And just for statistics, just so you know, in our annual reports, Independence House, there's about 9,000 contacts with Independence House in a year on Cape Cod. And that's, they're not all counseling contacts, but it's the restraining orders, the hotline, the sexual assaults, you know, it could be a duplication of one or, you know, some, but that's a lot of contacts for this little spit of land. So we have a work to do, and part of that is how do we address this prevention? So as you know, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I don't know if any other, Jay, you were there, but we had our breakfast. We every year we have this, but I think it was the 22nd one. We have a theme, we have a main speaker, and we have survivors speak, and we have a vigil. And the vigil honors those who have died this past 12 months in Massachusetts due to domestic homicide. Some of you, I have been here years ago. Some of you have seen the silent witnesses, the life-size figures that do that. So we try to show that around the Cape in October especially. And this year, there are 16 that we know of, 16 victims of domestic homicide in Massachusetts, and 2 of them here on Cape Cod. One in Falmouth and one in Hyannis. In the past 5 years, Cape Cod has had 6 victims of domestic homicide. So we do a lot of awareness and education activities and programs, but awareness and education is not enough. As we know, the statistics have not changed very much in the, I would say, the last decade or so. When we talk about prevention in this field, we look at 4 levels. There's the individual, relationship level, community level, and the societal level. And most of the work in this field as a movement has been done on the individual level and relationship, where, as you probably know, because we have been here before, we have healthy relationship curriculums that we have done in the high schools. over the years. They address a healthy relationship versus unhealthy, consent, red flags, boundaries, et cetera, right? And the challenge with that is this curriculum is not across the board. It's with either a club or a health class, and none of them are regular and constant, and not through every grade, and sometimes optional. So, but even if we had a consistent, age-appropriate, healthy relationship curriculum for K through 12, that wasn't guarantee their safety, right? What we need to look at is a community prevention strategy. What is the community doing to support healthy relationships? I'm using community as a word for, a faith community, a school, a sports team. There's different ways of a community, but we all need to operate in a healthy way. And so what things are in place as a community? What things are in place that would really be preventing sexual abuse, sexual assault, and abusive behavior? And what we're talking about is changing social norms. There's lots of social norms in our culture that kind of accept this violence, the sexist jokes and the demeaning women in a lot of ways. The advertisements really sexualize women, that kind of thing. So there's signs for abuse. There are signs that happen early. Assault and murder, death doesn't happen as a single incident, a single event. There's a continuum of behaviors that build up to that, okay? And so there were most likely were signs of the 6 victims that I mentioned, that people around them saw, somebody from their work, somebody from their church, at home, family gatherings. There are signs of abuse. And most likely 5 to 10 people knew something was happening. They couldn't put their finger on it, but something was not happening in that relationship, wasn't healthy. And they didn't know what to say or what to do or where to go about it. So, but in case of one of the individuals, I spoke to some of her friends. There was a gathering about it and they asked Independence to come. And I spoke to her friends and I asked if they had noticed anything wrong with their boyfriend relationship. Yes, they did. They warned her, they asked her why she was staying with him. So in that case, people did step up. The silence was broken. But there's something in our culture that makes people afraid to report something like this, afraid to reach out for help. So as a community, we need to have the conversations. This subject is really still very much a silent epidemic, and we're not talking about it. We need to raise a generation of children who respect themselves and others and don't choose violence. And we need to put language to domestic violence and sexual assault because of the epidemic that it is. And again, silence keeps it alive. So Independence House is taking a first step in having the conversations. Excuse me. In 2023, we're promoting, for lack of a better term right now, but focus groups. We're wanting to looking for a cross section of community members to come together and have this conversation about what is abuse, what keeps it silent, and what do they think would be part of a community helping to prevent it. I mean, I have my own ideas, but it would be important that the community has input, has buy-in to this kind of work, because again, it's just too much silence around it. So we are billing this as I get ready for courageous conversations. So I have these postcards here that we have been putting around. It's been a slow uptake, I guess, of people kind of responding, but with a good marketing plan and such, that's the plan is to in 2023. So our vision is that these focus groups will open up conversations, get more people involved in educational programs, understanding what that, why that's so important, and really to start to look at the social norms around us that do promote violence. And so what we want to happen is, well, some of those, I guess, I'm sorry, some of those social norms I mentioned, the objectification of women, valuing power over children, as in the sample of the Catholic Church moving perpetrator from one diocese to another, and keeping the issue a private matter. It's still very much a private matter. It's getting better, but it is. So my ask is that when the gets launched, that the health department would support that in any way, maybe be a focus group or help us distribute the cards, a variety of ways that we can promote the this step. So that's what I have. Does that help with a little bit of a?
Much so, no,
Yeah.
that was great. Could you address the issue of local government?
Do we? Is that what
Yeah,
you?
I mean, what is local government providing? You know, in what part of this process are they participating
Well,
in?
that is part of the outreach that would be included in this particular. The local governments, we have some of these kinds of dialogues with, pieces of the local government, health departments and such, but it certainly can increase. And so one community could be a town, right? So how do I involve the town administration on this campaign? That's what I'm looking at, to have conversations, like probably get on their agendas.
Elected officials,
Yes, the elected officials.
okay.
Yeah, but the council members, town council members, that's terrifying for me, but that's what I need to do.
Sure you do very well.
So,
Are you talking about having focus groups with different parts of the community? For example, would you have a focus group of maybe town administrators? I'm not talking about individual towns, but you're talking about a Cape-wide effort, obviously, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it's a Cape-wide effort. And
Right.
Yes, to your first thought was, excuse me, any group, but picking from the different parts of the Cape,
Right.
The police, the human service agencies, the book clubs, whatever. Yeah, a good
Yeah,
mixture.
Right, particularly people that aren't used to sitting down and being asked about these things or heard about these things. It hasn't hit their radar, or it hasn't been part of the
So-
responsibility.
Yes, and I guess the part of the original or initial promotion of it is why do we need these courageous conversations? And one of, we're a crisis country, we're a crisis culture. We know how to act in a crisis, and prevention is hard for us to think about, but when there's a crisis such as deaths due to homicide, domestic homicide, unfortunately, that is the time where you can get people to pay attention and understand that didn't happen just because it was a continuum of behaviors. So I agree. It could be a tough sell, but then we're up for it.
Mentioned raising a new generation. So I just hope there's some emphasis on the school system. I mean, on the young people there.
Yes.
starting with K through 12. Yeah.
Yes, and, yeah.
And,
So-
and the teachers, because they're interacting with the children all the time, and they certainly have some thoughts on it.
Yeah, I am talking about the entire community of Cape Cod.
Yeah, I know at one time we worked closely with the schools on an MVP program.
Right.
Is that something we might consider bringing back, or?
Well, the MVP program was part of our prevention grant at the time, and it was a 10-year grant, and we had planted a lot of seeds in the schools. We have a lot of connections there. Our present prevention grant is geared towards people with disabilities, in particular intellectual and developmental disabilities, because they're the most vulnerable population. But we have spent, so our, it's the way grants work, right? But the prevention grant isn't necessarily geared for high school students. It's geared for people with disabilities in the high schools, let's say. But we have built up a lot of connections to the high schools because of that year. So we stay in touch with them with Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month, White Ribbon Day. And so they would, in the plan, they would certainly be part of a focus group.
Okay, because that was very successful. We worked with the schools and the different club, the students that got together to discuss, violence. And I think we
Right.
had students in here one night. We had the room was full of students of how they were reacting at school. It was very positive.
It was very positive, but the curriculum didn't reach every student.
Right.
And so that's what we need to kind of look at.
Or younger students. It starts a lot long before high school, have role models at home that are not the right ones. And it's about feeling better about yourself, these kids, and that's sort of how it starts, I think. So, much earlier in high school, in the same way.
Oh,
with
absolutely.
Drug education is the same thing. It's
Okay,
high school, it's late.
So for the curriculum that Bruce is referring to, the schools are the human service department for kids. I mean, they have to deal with everything. And so I understand why they don't necessarily find a niche. So one of my solutions is to look at that curriculum and break it down, and how can we incorporate it into things subjects that already exist? For instance, if you have a novel in the English class, you're reading it, is it about a relationship? Can you talk about the relationship? It's not another thing. It's part of what's already existing. So that looks good on paper right now. But I appreciate your time, and I know Bruce will help with the support of spreading the word of this new campaign. Anything else?
That's great. Any questions, Charlie?
To this day, the most dangerous response for law enforcement is domestic violence. I had one of my best friends in 1968 respond to a domestic over on the north side, and he faced down a shotgun right off the bat. Guy opened fire on him.
Yeah.
Biggest problem I experienced when I was working up north was when I responded to one and find, violence, and get the woman to make a report and everything else, and then she never followed through with it.
Right.
And I used to get so upset, because I got one place where I came back 3 times.
And again, that's common just because we don't know the intimidation and everything else that's going on in the other end. But again, when there's a community conversation about this, that you have backing, you can go to the police and this will happen. That's part of these conversations, so that people know that it's not, they come through our doors filled with shame and blame because of all the messages they receive. And so it's very common what you just experienced, mentioned. Yeah. And it's frustrating as far,
Very frustrating.
even on the counseling end, so. The other dynamic that happens is that in our counseling, because the person that comes through our door has been beaten down, has very little self-confidence, very little self-esteem, because that's what's been battered into them. So we have to convince them that they,
A
They have a strength, they have opinion, they have a voice, and they've been told over and over again they don't. So, they do something that I would prefer that they go get a restraining order, but they know the abuser and, a restraining order is a piece of paper. So you have to have a safety plan ahead of that. So it's a very multifaceted problem and multifaceted solution. Yeah.
I
So-
think the other good news you had is you have a new house, a new safe house.
We have a new shelter, yes. It was announced at the breakfast donated house that they wanted to have as a shelter, but it was not suitable. So they let us sell it and use it, the funds to purchase another shelter. And we have some more units for the housing stabilization where they are out of danger, but they need a couple years to get their life back together again. So we have a couple more of those. So probably need a lot more of those. So any other?
Yes, by the way, I just wanted to comment on the Surviving and Thriving program that we received from your meeting this month, and it's excellent. Thank you very much.
Okay. Independence House?
That was the yellow book. I think we have
Oh, yes, from the breakfast. Yes.
Yes,
this one right here.
Yep.
That was
Sorry.
annual conference that you put on each year. That's very moving, very awareness.
right.
Um,
A lot of good information in here.
Yeah, it was packed. It was packed.
Yep.
was-
Yeah, thank you.
You had to move to a larger location this year because of your,
We had a national speaker that.
Yes.
Yeah.
very nice. Well, we are, just to remind the board, Independence House is one of our human services that we provide funding to each year that will continue with that. It's pretty much level funding, which we're grateful that was the finance and are looking at continuing funding. So that will be going forward this fall. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
Andy,
very much.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
both coming in. We
Thank you for
we
your work.
appreciate it very much.
All right, good night now.
Good night. Thank you.
Hope we all got one on, right?
Okay, next is an update on influenza, the clinic. So Director Murphy, this is probably you.
Yes, we have the annual flu clinic is back. We're going to have it again this year, Friday, October 28th at St. Pius Life Center, which we've had in the past, 3 to 5 p.m. It's free, covered by most insurance, but you need to make an appointment because we're expecting probably could be over 100 people, so we try to spread that over the time, and that's by calling the health department. You can 398-2231, extension 1241. We're taking appointments now, so we're having it back. We're working with Cape Cod Hospital Pharmacy to provide it. So it's back. Flu vaccine is still available at local pharmacies, but we do have a lot of people that like to come to our clinics. It runs very smooth. We are able to have handicapped accessible, and we have usually a separate table for people that may be in a walker or cane or a wheelchair, so to try to make it easier for them to attend the clinic. So hope to see everybody in a couple weeks as they get ready for Halloween weekend.
People should be aware that getting the flu vaccine doesn't interfere with the timing of getting a COVID booster.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else on that, anyone?
That's good.
Okay, let's go. We have an update on coronavirus.
Sure.
Jay's up.
Got it.
Okay.
I will take it. Not on the front page as much anymore. We're not seeing it in the news, but make no mistake, it is still very much in the community. and the numbers show that. So it's important that this stays on the board, that the board addresses this and brings this to the community to keep awareness and, again, proactive measures. You know, we heard an Independence House talk about prevention, and I can't help it. That's the pillar of public health. It's the work that you do is to be upstream, and that's what this is, to provide information and hopefully keep the community safe. The number of active cases, we have 18 active cases right now in Yarmouth. Been pretty consistent over the last several months. And again, now we're looking at, again, you can see the consistency. It really isn't dropping the way that we would hope that it would. Not increasing, but you know, in the winter months, indoor activities, combination of things with schools back in, we're not seeing that uptick, but it's not diminishing the way that we would hope. So 157 seeing right now in September. We then do a case tracker, kind of shows a little bit of the cases, gives you a good outline of where the cases are. This is more of a longitudinal look at it. Again, October 13th, last Friday, or Thursday rather, we had 18 cases, but you can see the spikes, and we're now going along a steady line, but not diminishing the way we would like. Yarmouth is now, you had seen us up at the community more towards the top. We're now we're down maybe 6, 7, but still not an acceptable number, over 11% positivity rate. And the only way that we can get that down, the immunization, the self-protection, the self-monitoring, all of those pieces will help drive that number down. And so we need continued vigilance from the community. We've moved down over the past 2 weeks, but certainly not where we want to be. Again, now this is the vaccinated rate. And maybe, you know, Mr. Chairman, as you're talking about individuals going to get their flu vaccine, which really was the measure of success for public health for so long, maybe that will then again bring that to their forefront and their front of their mind about vaccinations, and hopefully we'll see an uptick. But with the flu vaccines, hopefully we might see an uptick in the COVID-19 numbers as well for vaccinations. It's still readily available.
Will we have some information available at the flu clinic about the COVID boosters?
We will have certainly information. We'll be having test kits available. And that's coming up in a few slides also, but that self-monitoring piece. Yes, great. That's a great question. And yes, we will have information. All set. Second boosters again. Really, you're not seeing a big shift in numbers here where the second boosters, and again, this is the fall is typically seen and driven by, again, the flu vaccine. Hopefully we'll see those numbers go up with first and second vaccinations. Here we are week over week. You're seeing there's been a small downtick to 11.99% positivity rate, but still quite a bit of work to do. Bit of work to do. This is a new slide that you haven't seen. This is the COVID vaccine finder, and this is the overarching from the State Department of Public Health. If individuals, it's still very much in the community, and you'll see, what we talked about, CVS and Stop and Shop, Walgreens, and the hospital, but Vaccine Finder, the community should be aware and listeners should be aware to go on to, because what you do is you type in your zip code and it'll give you availability. And there's still some scheduling involved. There's still some time, but at least you're not scouring around to try to find where it might be available. This is probably the most comprehensive website to find that.
And how do you get to that website? It's a live link somewhere, or?
Well, if you go on, Vaccine Finder, that'll drive you right to the State Department of Public Health, and then you work your way down from there. But Vaccine Finder.
Maybe that's something we could put up on our webpage, so people just come to our home webpage. Would that be helpful?
We could,
Possibly.
we can do that. Sure. Yep.
Absolutely.
This is probably the, like I said, the most comprehensive and the best. It's going to give you overarching, if someone is willing to travel, if they work in a different community, they may decide to go somewhere else to get that.
And we both I think all three of us tried the website the other day just to make sure that the live link looked good. And
It does.
Erica was able to find us a couple openings looking.
It's very easy to use. I remember in the beginning of this, I had friends, they drove 4.5 hours to get a spot and get the,
Right.
their first vaccine.
Right.
Literally near the Canadian border. So,
Right.
yes,
right.
very easy to use.
It's loosened up. It's not certainly to that, but with a little bit of searching and say, well, I'm going to be in such a community, maybe I can find something there.
Yeah.
The point is to try to find it. Yep. To make that connection.
I want to go back to the flu clinic for a minute. I know that maybe people who come and get their seasonal flu vaccines would be preaching to the choir. However, we know that people in general are not following the statistics, and unfortunately, when they do, they don't always understand them. It seems to me it would be nice, and I guess we don't have an intern right now that we could ask to do this, but to have a couple of big poster boards that say, do you know this percentage of Yarmouth residents have been vaccinated? Of these, only such and such a percent have had both shots and at least one booster. Because people don't know this. They don't understand this. They don't realize, they're not seeing it. Like Jay said, it's not in the news every day. That, the state and the country has stopped monitoring it as frequently and publishing statistics about it. So I think if we could bring it right down to Yarmouth and say, did you know? This is where we're at as a community, and this is why it's so important for you to get your complete set of the 2 shots initially, and a booster, and another booster, and yet another booster.
Mary, those are excellent points. We will definitely pick up on that and
Okay.
to try to get some information out. You're absolutely right. It's spot on. Right. Again, Cape Cod Hospital, vaccinations are available, 508-862-7000. Again, Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then at our local businesses, CVS, Stop and Shop, along Pond Drive, and Walgreens. And again, we check those. Bruce goes and visits those regularly to make sure, do you have, in-person visits, talking to the pharmacist, making sure that, yes, they do have vaccine available. So we encourage the public to make that effort. When you're out and about, these locations, these businesses have it available and ready for you.
Good. Thank you.
By appointment. Yeah, it's just you have to register on their website. Yes. Urgent Care Center, again, by appointment. And it's important that, that you say by appointment, but that's for the protection to make sure that with spacing it out, you're not waiting a long time. Bruce is being very mindful talking about, Mary, the flu clinic, making sure that that people aren't waiting for, their experience of getting a flu vaccine is not a 45-minute wait. It's
Right.
going to be in and out, and that's why it's being we're scheduling those to make sure it's very fluid. People are
Right.
well served, be able to give them information and move them along.
Right. Make it easy for people.
Exactly. That if they have a good experience, if there's a good encounter, and Bruce has led this, and he's been scheduling this for some time, so he's pretty good at it. Making sure that it's a good encounter, and then they'll encourage others, other family members, perhaps work associates, colleagues, things of that nature. So that's but your point about good information, with good information, people make good decisions. So hopefully we can be part of that process. And we do have something since the last a change since the last meeting. We received it's almost 6,000, I believe, 5,670 at-home test kits. This is now the state deployment of those. Those are stacked up in every available corner of our office, and they're going out on a regular basis. upstairs, the town hall, the libraries, the senior centers, nonprofits, the food pantry. And we're just trying to push those out and make them available and distributed so that the community has them for self-monitoring.
They are invaluable for that.
They are, Mary, and this new batch also has the stick. I want maybe the community listening at home, residents, to look at, to make sure, maybe you've never done this before, but there is a QR code. If you've taken one of our state kits, the expiration date on the container will say, certainly, it could say the 17th of October, but that QR code on the front extends the expiration date. These now go into 2023. So not to read what's the expiration date on the manufacturer's packaging, but rather the QR code on the front. And we've gone through the labor of putting QR codes on each of the kits to read the QR code on the front, because these are still, we would never hand out something that has been expired. And so that's good, most of them through probably January or February of next year.
But a lot of people don't know about QR codes.
That's one of our frustrations as we put this on, to say, has anyone taken the time? Typically, and we've had colleagues in this building have turned that box over and say, you're giving out, test kits that are expired. And well, then we have to take that educational moment to say, well, if you take this code and put your phone next to it, it'll then pull up the new expiration date that's been identified by the State Department of Public Health. But you're right, there's a learning curve to that, and hopefully people are trying to get that message out. This might help this conversation, and we try to do that on a regular basis. But you're right, not a lot of people might have, some people might not have experience in that. The board, their mask advisory, your mask advisory from May actually of this year, which is a prudent one. Indoor activities, indoor settings, to the advisory to take that measure to perhaps if you're at risk or you have a concern or you're immune compromised, to let that layer of protection to wear a mask. And this positivity rate, there was, I guess, a question about how the positivity.
Yeah, I didn't know if you or Mary wanted to discuss how the positivity rate is determined. I know, Mary, you had excellent response, and we do have a couple emails on that if you wanted to touch base with that.
What prompted this was an email, I think it was to Mr. Rittenauer, about the positivity rate that we have been using and broadcasting and publicizing. And the citizen took task with how we were calculating the positivity rate. And I responded that it wasn't something that was arbitrarily done. It is a public health statistic, and it is calculated in a certain way across the country, across health departments. And it is simply the number of positive test results divided by the total number of tests performed times 100 to get a rate. So in our packet, we have a handout from an epidemiologist. It was written 2 years ago. I mean, the concepts are exactly spot on, of course, because they don't change, but it doesn't talk anything about more recent positivity rates than 2 years ago. So apart from that, it's fine. It says exactly what I said. It's not a difficult to understand rate, but the public citizen felt like we were not doing it properly, and therefore using it as a way to extend the pandemic and the whole, all of the thoughts about it in terms of prevention and all.
Yeah, no, it's a math equation, Mary. You said it perfectly. It's a math equation, and illustrates the numbers. And knowing full well that many individuals, and we're promoting this, are testing at home, so the positivity rate is probably underreported, but that is the rate of individuals that have gone and been tested at a medical setting.
Right. So actually, the fact that people who are testing at home are not reporting that means that the positivity rate could likely be even higher.
That delta is unknown. And
Right,
we don't know.
right. No.
Okay.
Amen.
Yeah, simple calculation. Of course, the meaning of it has changed a little bit now that there are people getting vaccinated and there are test kits at home and all that. So you can interpret it differently, but it's just the same calculation is what we're using and maintaining it.
Calculus, yeah.
Right.
Well, hopefully that was helpful for the person who sent it in the email. Anything else on COVID? No? Okay, so we're on to approval of minutes. It looks like there are three of them. The first is from July 18th, 2022. I was present, Mary was present, and Eric was. So we only have two people who can vote on that. So that, I don't think we can vote on that. Am I correct? To approve minutes? Do you need, I don't know. If only, I mean, we have to have three people at a meeting. Right now, it's interesting. We wouldn't be able to if Eric is not going to be present. Then how do you approve the minutes with two people? This is good. We can solve it now. It's 7:30. We can work on that one next time. Why don't we do that? Let's go to August 15th. And everyone was present except for Eric. So we can, someone make a motion to approve the August 15th, 2022 meeting. I appreciate that. So move somebody.
We still have Mary.
Say move.
Charlie's moving.
Motion to approve the minutes?
Thank you.
Second.
Mary, thank you. Okay, all in favor, just say aye. That's
Aye.
Mary, I hear everyone, Charlie and myself. So the August 15th, 2022 meeting minutes have been approved. Let's go to September 19th, looks like, and everyone is there. So let's, anyone has any questions, edits, whatever, anyone make a motion to approve this September 19th, 2022 minutes?
So move.
So moved. Okay, second. Thank you, Charlie. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I hear Mary, Charlie, myself. Good. So those minutes pass, and we'll deal with July 18th at another time in the future. Okay, let's move on. New and old business. One we need to discuss, and that is I received request, or I guess the whole board has gotten a letter from Eric requesting a leave of absence for 12 to 16 weeks. It's the first time since I've been on the board, at least, that someone has put in a request for that. So I thought we ought to discuss it. And Jay or Bruce, maybe you know about what has to take place in the health department and I guess in town. I want to hear from our members, Charlie, Mary, and myself, of what our thoughts are on it. So
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I did check with the administrator's office, and they said we could submit a letter to the administrator's office that would bring it to the selectman appointment chairman. And if the board felt that they could still have a quorum during the time that Eric was away, that they would consider that, probably in a positive role. We only need 3 for a quorum, so we can get by if somebody else couldn't make it for one meeting.
Right.
I think that would be the way to go. I think everybody here has been pretty forward and look like they'll be here at the next meetings. I think we could probably go that direction. It looks like Eric would be away 4 months. We're already through October, so we got through that month already. We've got a couple 1 months coming up and then the holidays. So I think it would probably be reasonable that we could probably maintain quorums.
I would think so. I mean, now that people are joining the meeting remotely, it makes it a lot easier. Someone could be out of state, it could be out of the country and still attend the meeting. So
Right.
I would hope we could meet the quorum. And I just make the point, in the sense of Eric, I think we're kind of lucky. He's got a background in agriculture and his specific interest in hydrology, and probably water quality here is becoming more important of an issue than COVID. I mean, for Cape Cod, it's that serious. So it would be nice if we're able to grant the leave, and hopefully, Eric will be back on working with us. Anyone
And
else?
he's a younger voice. Let's say that too, which is helpful, I think, because, he's going to be one of the citizens for longer than I hope. But I think that, yes, I would wholeheartedly support granting his request for a board of, an absence from the Board of Health. Because I think he contributes a lot, and it's certainly, as everybody on the board now knows, it takes a while to get up to speed on what the board deals with and what the processes are and et cetera.
Yeah, welcome to the world of septic variances. Okay. Charlie, any comments, any feelings about this?
Yeah, you probably don't want to hear my comments. I think if you're going to be on this board, you have the responsibility to either show up or be replaced. Now, I have been here at every meeting for the last, how many years has it, Bruce? I haven't missed any through COVID or anything else. And I think if you're going to assume the responsibility to be on the Board of Health, you should at least show up. 4 months leave of absence, I don't think is something proper if you're going to take this seriously.
Okay, well, we could certainly take a vote. Why don't we do that?
Well, just for clarification, how many meetings does this involve? Bruce, you kind of outlined it in general, but basically, how many meetings would this entail?
We have
4 or 5?
4.
This month, 1, and then the November 2. Are we going to have a second one in November? It's going to run into the Thanksgiving.
It depends what's happening with FedEx. They're slow getting their information in, so that will be one meeting. And then we have the tattoo one that we have to discuss. So we might
Right.
only have, we have no septic variances pending right now.
Okay,
It could be 3 meetings, could be 4 meetings.
okay.
People,
I went over to FedEx the other day and took a walk through on the construction and what they've done with those septic and everything else in there. They're light years ahead of where I expected them to be.
Good.
And everything they're doing over there is overkill.
okay, but back to the topic here, just dealing with the request for a leave.
It sounds like a long time, but it's not really, particularly bumping into the holidays when we are pretty conservative about not holding a meeting unless we really need to have it.
Good point,
I can check with Deborah to see what her feeling is also.
do
And
that.
then I'll just forward the consent, what I've heard from now.
Yeah, it can happen.
That's
People
fine.
get sick, people get hospitalized, miss meetings and
Yeah,
all.
yeah.
And so, yeah, once you speak to
Yeah, as
Deborah,
long as Deborah thinks that she'll be, a regular attendee. That
Right. That'd be key. Absolutely. Yes.
thank you.
All
What else on old and new
So
business?
all new businesses, we have 2 members up for reappointment. Charlie, your term is expiring the end of this month, and you have, if you want to sign up or,
Me to expire this month?
yeah, you expire this month if we don't say anything, so. And then Chairman Hills, you're up, also, the 2 of you are up, so we would just like to know, you can let us know tonight or sometime this week if you're willing to come forward. No, you can just tell me, yeah.
I'll stay on.
Okay,
My pleasure.
all right. Charlie,
What?
would you like to stay on for another 3 years or,
Oh, yeah.
okay,
I have no choice.
you have no choice.
You already know that.
All right, you're here to replace, okay. All right, well, thank you. I'll pass that along also then. Only other new business I have is, like I mentioned, our next board meeting would be Monday, November 7th. We'll have the Spilled Milk Tattooist back to us again. COVID update. I don't believe there's any septic variances pending. No. And,
Not at this time.
okay,
Not in our town. Anyway,
That's it.
Anything else?
Motion.
Okay, it's number 8. Somebody address that,
Motion to adjourn?
that kind of thing. Anyone?
To get out of Dodge?
Okay, that's a motion to adjourn, I believe. Mary, are you seconding that?
Out of Dodge also, second.
Okay, fine. Everyone's out. Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Everyone did, said yes. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for coming.